So what that's doing is that's broadening the word. It's broadening the category of the word. It's not narrow. Certainly there are certain construals of rape that are narrow. Um, but there are certain construals of rape that are broad. And what comes at the trade-off here is that when you broaden the category, there's a denotative success, but there's a connotative failure. So yes, you can broaden the term rape to include those things, but so it doesn't fail connotatively. That is to say, what is meant by rape is captured in the actual event. However, it comes at the trade-off of a connotative failure. What do I mean by connotative failure? Is just that the connotation that word is giving off is something like, oh, really, really bad. That sort of thing that is bad in the sense that you held someone down at gunpoint and you fucked them or something. But in reality, there's all sorts of different types of things that one can call rape, and they are not all the same. They're not all equally bad, even if they're all bad. And so it fails connotatively in the sense that it's not nearly as bad as the thing is what you tried to make it out to be, is what that word is being used for. And the same thing is true for a lot of buzzwords. Ethnic cleansing, apartheid, open air prison. They all have this issue where they either have some trade-off on their denotative success versus their connotative success. So in the case of ethnic cleansing, if one broadens the term ethnic cleansing to include a given situation where a bunch of individuals are forced out of their locations and they happen to be of a given ethnicity, even if the reason ultimately is not turning on their given ethnicity. So it's not ethnic cleansing per se, but it's a non per se construal of ethnic cleansing. There are ways we can just start broadening things like that to include the situation being ethnic cleansing, but it comes at a connotative cost. The connotation there, when people hear the term ethnic cleansing, it's the sort of thing that people are just going to say, oh, well, that's just like automatically bad. It's just like, well, that's like the sort of thing. It's like taking a whole bunch of people and just killing them for their ethnicity, or just like deporting them all for their ethnicity, or just like rounding them up and putting them into, and putting them into trains and taking them away because of their ethnicity. So they either fail connotatively and denotatively. I had an argument I'm going to post actually. So the general argument is this. And this is not, should put this in a text and notes here.
Okay.
Let me put it in notes so it comes out clean in Discord. I'm posting this in general chat.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to turn my pings off because all the people joining. I didn't expect that. All right.
No, it's fine. People just like listening.
Yeah, okay.
And this goes for apartheid, crime of apartheid. It goes for like all of these. Okay. So the issue is a lot of the buzzwords fall prey to this argument. So the first premise is either the buzzword is narrow or it is not narrow. That's just P or not P. Second premise is if the buzzword is narrow, then the buzzword makes the situation wrong, or at least as wrong as it's trying to make, but it's not clear that the buzzword applies to the target situation. So that would be like the case of rape, where it's construed narrowly, but then really it's the type of rape they're talking about is like a power dynamic. Or in the case of like ethnic cleansing, it's the ethnic cleansing per se, when really it's non per se ethnic cleansing that's happening.
Wait, I'm so sorry. Where are you showing me this? So you said you wrote something down.
General chat?
Oh, general chat. Okay. Why can't I find? Hang on. Oh yeah, in the side chat. Okay.
Yeah.
No?
You see it? You just got pinned.
Side chat.
It's not in the general chat of the VC.
Oh yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
General chat.
Yeah, I see. Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right, nice.
Yeah. And then the third premise is if the buzzword is not narrow, so then when it's broadly construed or just not narrowly construed, then it's not clear that the buzzword makes the situation wrong, or at least as wrong as the connotation of the buzzword is attempting to do. So that would be like the ethnic cleansing non per se when people are taking the connotation of ethnic cleansing per se, or the people take the rape as hold the person down and have sex with them versus like, oh, there's consent, but there was a power dynamic.
Mhm.
So that's the general problem I have. I wanted to know if and I guess that there was one so that's one thing I wanted to just run by you, because this is like one thing I see a lot of buzzwords being used in this surrounding this conflict. And by the way, like certain usages of buzzwords on the other side fall prey to this too. So for example, there's a difference between like the word term human shield, right?
Mm.
There's a difference between human shield being a terrorist firing in a populated civilian area, versus a terrorist setting up in a hospital and firing from there or near there, or a school, right? Like not
Yeah.
all versions of human shield carry the same connotative weight, or at least should carry the same connotative weight, even if we can construe it narrowly or broadly where the denotation may or may not apply.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that's the major issue. And I think generally it's helpful. So generally, I think this is why I think generally these buzzwords that get thrown out are not maybe not just not helpful, maybe but on the net not helpful is what I'm, because there may be some aspects that are helpful, but this is the basic issue. Like they have this, they seem to have this effect where it's like, well, if I can just like construe this same buzzword that carries the same connotation more broadly, and I could fit you into that category, then I can like
Yeah.
carry the same sort of weighted condemnation on you. Like, oh, how terrible you are. Like you support this. And by this, we're like going, well, let me just pull out like the broad construals, like you technically fit in there. So like, aha. Like terrible. Like that's the sort of thing I see happening a lot. Yeah. So that's one broad thing. So I was wondering if there was agreement on that, or any sort of like disagreement or anything.
I've said the similar thing probably in a less elaborate way. Yeah. I would tend to just say it's like very thought terminating, and you can tell that people are using it in a way to just shut down the disagreement and to kind of shoehorn people into good and bad guys. Like that
Yeah.
seems to be so I don't know if you saw it today, but I saw Hassan debating that guy who made like a video essay about him. And it was honestly just like, do you agree that Israel is committing a campaign of ethnic cleansing and genocide, and therefore he's like, yeah, well, sure. And then anyone who supports Israel's actions is a genocide defender, and it's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
this conversation's open and shut then, right? Yeah.
It's like it's like, okay, instead of, yeah, and by genocide, we just like imagine someone doing the semantic analysis on those terms. I mean, like, okay, well, by genocide, what construal of genocide are you talking about?
Hmm.
Um, a broad or narrow construal? Oh, it's a broad construal. So then what? Then what is like, is it going to come out to be some construal where, being a quote unquote genocide defender is really just only bad because it carries that connotative weight, because people associate that word with something other than what your construal is? Is that what it's going to turn out to be? Yeah. But this is the reason why. I think this is the issue about why it's so thought terminating. It's just it has this trade-off that people aren't recognizing. Um, it
Do you
has
feel like the other side does that as well with the like? Because whenever I've even said this about the idea of constantly saying human shields, because
yeah,
I think the other thing about it is if you hear it enough, it just becomes like comical, or you become desensitized to the term. Which is probably why I feel like the reason a lot of people don't believe in the human shields argument is because, first of all, like there's not really any incentive to look into it, but also because it just conjures up this image of literally like a Hamas guy on a roof holding up a baby with one hand and a gun with the other, you know?
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So yeah, I actually no. So I mentioned the term human shield also.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and I think like when we say when you know when human shields are the term human shields are invoked, yeah, some concepts, some construals of human shield will this argument will be sound for as well. So like if by human shield we just mean that there was some terrorist that's firing from some area where there were civilians in the location. There happened to be some civilians there. Like, okay, well, that's a human shield because there was a civilian wandering by. It's like, okay, well, you can have a construal of human shield like that,
Mm.
but that's not going to carry the same connotation. So you can make the denotation work there, but that's not going to carry the same connotation as a terrorist setting up a rocket firing silo near a hospital or near a
Yeah.
school. And that's the sort of issue that people are thinking when they think of human shields. Like that when the connotation anyway. It's the sort of connotative weight that's being driven. It's that sort of badness where it's not like, oh, like there was a militant with an RPG and a Gazan civilian was walking by. Right? Like that's like you can construe human shield that way, but it's not going to it's gonna fall prey to the same argument. So this is basically just a formalization of an argument for which a lot of buzzwords this argument would be sound for. So
Mm.
it just spells out the basic problem. Either you're construing the buzzword narrowly or not narrowly. If it's narrow, it makes the situation wrong. That is to say, it connotatively is successful, um, but it's not clear the buzzword applies to the target situation. That is to say,
Yeah.
the denotation is unsuccessful. Um, And if the buzzword is not narrow, then it's not clear the buzzword makes the situation wrong, or
Mm.
say that the connotation has failed.
Yeah, because I guess when people try to shoehorn like every kind of like movement of population into ethnic cleansing, well, then it's going to become really easy to find ethnic cleansings that are actually good, like
Yes.
moving settlers out of Gaza. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So my personal rule is like I only really use buzzwords when I'm trying to argue like this is that buzzword, right? Like so if I want to argue that this act was an ethnic cleansing or genocide, then that's when I would bring up those words. But I don't really know if there's any other time you would. What do you think?
What's sorry, I missed. Someone's correcting my argument here. Did I mess up? Q is different in the conclusion on P2. Q is it's not clear the buzzword applies to the target situation. Either it's not clear the buzzword is what's different about Q? It's not clear that the buzzword applies to the target situation. Oh, because it has the word but? Is that it? Stop trolling. um I could the buzzword makes the situation wrong, but it's not clear that wait, P implies Q. Okay. If the buzzword is narrow, then the buzzword makes the okay, I see. The buzzword makes the situation wrong. I'll just put makes the situation wrong in parentheses just for like clarity's sake. And not that it's representing Q. Yeah, that's fine. I would say here, how about this? Does that work? The parentheses is just for the reader to be clarity. You can still, or I could just delete that part and this argument would still work. Okay. All right,
Not gonna
cool.
lie, my brain's just not compatible with the bracket stuff, but I get the rest. Yeah.
So no. So basically, what was happening? No, it's just a prop logic thing because like you want
Okay.
actually the propositional variables to be consistently represented. And basically, I put something in for clarity's sake where it is in the propositional variable, but the clarity thing was not in the propositional variable in the other instance it was showing up. That's all. Yeah, it was just not added to the conclusion. I can add it in parentheses to the conclusion to the conclusion as well. Or here, I do that. Boom. There. Now the propositional variable is represented equally. Fine. It's just a technical thing that I'm getting shit for. because I wasn't fully technical about it. That's all. But I do think it's important for you to see this argument and for you to see how it like applies to these buzzwords. So I'll just repost the one where, just because my fellow prop logic nerds would be satisfied. So that's just one iteration of like this sort of argument.
I'm not used to this corner of the internet. Holy shit.
This is
I
This
I
is
was
this
sorry.
we're this is the ultimate debate bro space. No, that's the pejorative that people use to us, but no, we're friendly. Yeah, go ahead. You were saying?
I was going to ask you something totally different. Unless did you have anything more to say about this?
I know if we're in agreement that this basically is a sound argument for a whole bunch of the buzzwords, then I think we're in agreement about that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, I generally avoid buzzwords, so yeah, hopefully, yeah. I was going to ask you. I saw you tweeting something. I hope it was you. Something about like talking about propaganda from human rights organizations about. I think it was about Israel's actions, or maybe just generally. Was that you? Like propaganda from Amnesty International, or
Yeah, well, the UN.
yeah,
I think I didn't. So the ones I left out was was the Red Cross.
yeah.
Amnesty International. Yes, I did put that in. UN I put in, and I said other ideological NGOs. Yeah.
Okay. So I've been reading a little bit for the last couple of days about this, these reports about Operation Cast Lead or Pillar of Defense or whatever, and finding out all these different claims about how some people are saying that Israel targeted civilians as a matter of policy. Other people are saying it was like that it's like more their typical policy of just pursuing their military goals with like recklessness, and then the result is that civilians die when they don't necessarily have to, but it's in aid of like them just pursuing their objectives faster, and it's not necessarily still targeting explicitly. But I'm looking through all these amnesty reports. I'm just like, or different reports. I'm just like, how are they finding their information, or like what's
Yeah.
motivating them to
No,
speak? And like, do you know anything about that though? Because I don't really know who to trust. Yeah.
That's why I'm baffled upon reading them. I'm just like, I don't know how their field workers know this. Like, oh, this just seemed like I'm looking through it, and it just seems like it's just a whole bunch of inference work. Not to say there's anything wrong with inference work per se. It's just, I'm like, how? It's like, it's almost like someone like it. Maybe not to that exactly that level, but it's like, it's almost like the position one would need to be in to make some of the claims that are made. Like this is like, as a matter of fact, policy. I don't like I don't know how, and like for example, an Amnesty International worker would know that. Or would even and I don't see how their inferences get me to that conclusion.
Yeah, because all I could see in the 22 days of death and destruction, that was the one I read a bit of, was like
Yeah.
they are using witness testimony and they're saying what happened on the ground. But there's no analysis of IDF targeting. Am I on the right track with that? Yeah. It's just like they're just kind of say, yeah.
Exactly what no, we're coming to a line there. Yeah. No, so this it's like it's an inference. You can say, okay, well, you interview witnesses and say, okay, well, here is a event that witnesses are describing happened. We can all agree that the event may be bad. We can all agree that the event we have a preference the event not happen. We can all agree that it's horrific, but that's not the inference. The inference is that not that it's bad. The inference is that that this was like a deliberate attack as a matter of policy or something, and that's just kind of wild. It's just like because the reason it's wild is because that evidence is just an observation that's more expected on one hypothesis than another, and that testimony is just an observation, which is, and for it to be motivating, it needs to be more expected on one hypothesis than the other for it to be epistemically motivating. So, and I'm just not seeing how a whole lot of these observations that these reports are generating are in fact more expected on the hypothesis that they're that they're deliberately targeting as a matter of policy versus something else, like, okay, there were instances of recklessness, or there were instances of individuals like fucking up, or there were individuals because like here's the thing, like in any war there's events where like soldiers do terrible things and they fuck up.
Mhm.
Right, like that first. So I mean, look, in what was that event in Iraq where a group of soldiers not only killed a family, but they like raped a 14-year-old girl or something and then killed the family.
Mhm.
What was it? There was a movie on it called Redacted film. It was the 2006 Mahmudia killing.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I'll put for anyone who wants to read about
The
that.
U.S. soldier was sentenced to 100 years.
Yeah. Now
The
to be fair,
American,
yeah. Now to be fair, the sentence was at least they got the sort of sentence you would expect them to get for something like that.
Mm.
Although to be fair, that was a very sort of egregious type of crime. Like this is not like an example of you fucking up and hitting civilians when you're firing. This is an example of you going into a house, raping a child in front of her, like in the next door of her parents, and then killing all of them after
Mm.
like all of you are done raping the child. Like, yeah. So just posting that for the chat. Yeah. So like war is shitty. Like there's terrible things that happen in wars, but that's not the question. The question is not like, did terrible things that shouldn't have happened happen? That's like the claim. If that was the claim, I wouldn't like have anything against these NGOs.
Yeah.
I would agree with it. Like the claim is that this was like, imagine if the NGO said like, hey, this was a matter of policy.
Yeah.
Like this rape was a matter of policy.
Like you couldn't say that if you, especially because it was like the Goldstone report that said that, even though they didn't have access to IDF files, right? They didn't have
Right.
access to any of how. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's really just that simple. It's not like, because
Yeah.
I just felt like I was looking at so many different reports that were just okay. I
Yeah.
think I understand now.
It's an inference, and I'm just not seeing the strength of the inference, which is the problem. The problem is that they're presenting it as like this factual thing. It's like, oh well, this is just that's their policy,
Yeah.
and it's just like, and people just read that and be like, oh yeah, this group found it. That's the policy. Like that was the discovery. Like no, you didn't discover. Like there wasn't a whistleblower in the IDF that you found. Like there wasn't like someone you didn't get leaked documents with the policy or something like that. You didn't. You're making inferences about bad things that happened when it's compatible with a different hypothesis about that also accounts for bad things happening. It's just in a less bad way than you want it to be. That's all. Or a less bad way than you're reporting it as.
Yeah, and I think, is this why you trust the Red Cross? Because what they'll say is just something like, the mission has found that there's no discernible military use from this particular target. They won't actually say what
Exactly.
the intent
They're
was. Yeah,
actually
okay.
careful about their wording. I specifically did not include the Red Cross in my tweet.
Hmm.
Because they're a couple things. They tend to be more careful about their wording of their findings. They limit it to what the inference can really work for. So their conclusions are worded in such a way that I look at that and I'm like, oh yeah, you can say that. That's supported by the inference. Like, okay, well, we couldn't discern a military significance. Okay, fine. Like, you want to say that, that's fine. But that's not making the further claim like, oh, they have the policy to commit genocide, of course. Like,
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. Yeah. So I found the Red Cross to be more reasonable. To be more reasonable on this. So yeah, I mean that's it. And the issue with this, and so I called it propaganda because like that is not. It's really not well, I think it is, but even if it's not that far off from it. It's just like really stretching. It's like the same sort of propaganda I'll expect from Michael Greger on vegan on misrepresenting health science. It's just stretching the envelope of what the data is showing, what the conclusions one can make, giving the people a whole bunch of wrong impressions about what's epistemically justified here, and having real international like pressure implications as a result of it. So yeah, that was
How
the
would
Mhm.
how would you describe Israel's like military policy in general? Because I feel like I get three impressions. One is I get that they're just committing genocide and ethnic cleansing. The other two, I guess, tends to both come from pro-Israel people. One is that they're incredibly precise and like surgical targeting, and they roof knock and they call people and they make all the precautions and they drop leaflets.
Mhm.
But then the other one I hear, which is also from pro-Israel people, which is that the Middle East is fucking crazy. Everyone wants us dead. The only way that we'll ever command any respect or any like people will take us seriously and allow us to exist in this area is if we fuck shit up and are quite like reckless and we show our strength. But I don't know how those two can be true at the same time. So, do you have any
Yeah.
opinion?
Well, I don't think I have. I think we're going to add a fourth category to that list because I don't think I fall into either of those three camps. So I think in terms of policy, I guess it depends how we're asking the question. Um, if we're asking the question about intent, I don't think Israel's goal is to just fuck shit up. Like I don't agree that like hey, the Middle East is crazy. We just have to fuck a bunch of shit up. I don't think that is the. Hold on, let me just mute this person. Yeah, I don't think that the goal is to just fuck shit up. I think and nor do I think that the intent might be to surgically strike, but I don't think that's how the actions are actually unfolding. I don't think what's happening in effect is a surgical precise precision. Even if they are roof knocking, may not work. Even if they are giving warnings, the warnings may fail. And ultimately, you're just in a very densely populated area such that there's going to be a whole bunch of civilian casualties if you do certain strikes. I think what's happening is so let's separate the questions then. So with respect to intention, I think if we're just talking about intentions, I think that the third category you mentioned would probably be the most correct. If like so for example, if Israel could just press if the people who are writing the policies just had, you know, omnipotence and they could just like press the button and say, okay, all Hamas operators are dead, but all the civilians are alive. Yeah, they'd press that button. That's the button they would press. Like, I don't think they would press the button that says, hey, fuck all the shit up. Right. So I don't think they would do that. Some people do think they would do that. Some people would say, oh, no, they wouldn't press the kill all Hamas. They would press the just fuck all the shit up. Or you can say kill all Hamas and all of the civilians that aided Hamas or something like that. You can phrase it however way you want. But that's not going to be the same thing as saying, press the glass Gaza button.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's the impression I got was that, and I think I maybe go back to the paper that I read this from I think it was Avi Schleim, but the idea of what they did in the 2006 war, which was like not quite what I meant by fuck shit, but this is what I meant by fuck shit up was more just like just going quite what would normally be considered overboard with destruction of infrastructure because it might become advantageous to people in the future, or just being a bit like more reckless when it comes to targeting and like not double checking intelligence and stuff like that. Or
So I think that okay. Okay, so I'm not say more. Okay, so it's not like because the fuck shit up originally it sounded more like the just genocide button. But
no,
okay.
that's I separate that for yeah.
Right. Okay, gotcha. Got it. Yeah. No, so I still think in terms of intention, I think the third one is correct. I think in terms of action, the second one is probably more correct then. In terms of outcomes, and I think that's just largely a target of like it may just not be wholly feasible to do to execute your intentions in that sort of target population. I think so. I do think that Israel has military valuations to look. There's always a trade-off. There's going to be some military objective and there's going to be some evaluation that's going to be placed from that military objective, and there's going to be a trade-off of however much value you place on the cost of civilian life that's involved, including in this case Israel's own hostages. They're going to have to take that into account. And I think that Israel's threshold for is just more weighty on the valuation of the military objective success in relation to the value of those lives than other people would have their threshold set at. That's what I see happening, or at least what I suspect is happening. I suspect
Yeah,
that sort of threshold valuation judgment difference.
and I guess it's the case that the more ambitious their military objective is, like get rid of Hamas, then I guess they have more leeway for collateral damage and stuff like that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, the more ambitious the military objective is, the more the cost pragmatically will be.
Mhm.
And so when you combine that with that increased threshold, that compared to what someone else would want it to be, that compounds the cost of life. It's going to there's going to be an increase. So it's from the cost of life of innocent life is going to be from two factors. It's the nature of the military objective being far more ambitious than the previous objective. Like, this is not cast lead anymore.
Yeah.
This is end Hamas. Like, this is
Yeah.
just
Exactly. Yeah.
so yeah. So that's one thing. And and by the way, that alone is probably going to be a huge factor. Like, even if like all of these armchair like experts had their way to like conduct this war in the way they think would minimize civilian life. First of all, I'm not convinced that these armchair experts would actually reduce the destruction of civilian life with what they're
Mhm.
saying. But even if they would, there would be a huge amount of civilian casualties with a military objective like that.
Yeah. There's no way around. Yeah.
Yeah, there's really just nowhere around. Like, and look, that's the situation. It's an incredibly densely populated area. Hamas is deeply entrenched throughout that area, on the ground, in the tunnels, in the civilian structures, and they want to. They seem to want to be. They're not going to leave it and go and fight a
Mhm.
military fight on separated from them. They may even want their civilians to be there. In fact, there's reports they call from them there. So anyway, I mean, but they're certainly not going to like do this like thing where they like leave the civilians and like, hi, let's settle this like men and let's go to armed combat against the IDF on the field. Like that's not going to happen. And like the whole like there, and then of course there's like the place is probably rigged with mines. The place there's
Mhm.
all sorts of like, yeah, it's a mess. And so even if there was no airstrikes, like even if there was no bombings, like just imagine a ground invasion in an area where you don't have the airstrikes to take out munitions facilities, you don't have the airstrikes to take out any of the strategic locations, any areas that may just be fully loaded with mines or whatever. Like, okay, so you don't do all of that. Like, what is a ground invasion without all of those things taken out going to look like? Um, okay, so there may be certain devices that are less discriminate in nature that are going to be used, but the devices that are more discriminate in nature are going to be used a hell of a lot more. And so what
Mhm.
ends up winning out? Like, I don't know. Because even if there's a device that has a more discriminate probability, if it's just going to need to be used a whole lot more, then it's not clear to me that that's going to reduce the loss of civilian life. It would just like that would be just a very complicated calculation. I don't know how anyone would do that.
Yeah.
So like, because that's an argument I've heard recently made. Like, oh well, we could know that a ground invasion alone would have a lower casualty to civilian life because look at the weapons that are used in airstrikes. The weapons that are used in airstrikes have this radius, and it's like, okay, that's true. They do have a larger radius, and therefore they do have a higher probability that
Mm.
it's going to be it's going to involve civilians, but that's just compared to the counterfactual where all the targets are not taken by those devices. How many uses of the lower radius devices you think are going to be used with the ground army, is it going to be the same? No, it's going to be a whole lot more. And so whatever probability it is, it will be multiplied by the additional amount of usage as it is, or some sort of analysis like that. What ends up winning out? I don't fucking know. I don't think anyone knows. I mean, and if anyone does know, it's certainly not going to be me. It's certainly not going to be anyone on Twitter or Twitch. It's probably like it'll be like some individuals like doing a whole cabinet, doing some calculation, in some military cabinet, like in conjunction with, like, I don't know, having privileged access to U.S. or Israel military intelligence. It's just like some people are just. It's almost like they're coming at this with the epistemic confidence, as if they have special access to U.S. military intelligence, Israel military intelligence, and Hamas military intelligence all at the same fucking time, and it's just wild. It's just, yeah. So I don't know. But even if it would, I mean, if we grant that it would have some, so even if we grant that it would, like, it's still going to be a huge amount of civilian casualties either way. Which is not to grant that it would decrease civilian casualties. I have no idea if a ground invasion alone would decrease civilian casualties.
Yeah, couldn't tell you.
Yeah. So
I think I may be rather going to go back to history stuff, because this military stuff is just so brain damaged with
no, I mean, but if you want to, but there's a thread that links this here. It's just that if you look at these sorts of battles that have taken place in previous battles throughout history, have taken place in largely densely populated areas, I'm not aware of any of them in modern times that haven't used airstrikes. No. Like the Battle of Mosul used there were plenty of airstrikes there. Now one could say, like, they didn't account for most of the deaths. They still accounted for a lot of them. I'm even like with Ukraine. I mean, they were some airstrikes that Russia did. Like, I don't know any military operation in a densely populated area in modern times that was just a pure ground invasion. That, like, and to show, like, oh, this was like this perfect success story because we didn't, like, when does this happen? Like, what does any country do this?
Yeah, I guess not.
So that's one reason that the civilian casualty is high. It's just the ambitious nature. And then the other reason is just that, like, Israel, as I suspect any country would, and to the dismay of all the humanitarians, and Israel does not value the lives of its own civilians in a 1-to-1 ratio as to the lives of Gazan civilians. It just doesn't.
Yeah,
they value their civilians more. Like, they do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess every country's like that, aren't they?
Yeah. No, that's the, just like the United States is going to valued their soldiers more than the lives of Iraqi civilians. Like, so yeah. That's the situation. So okay, so I hope that answers your question about, like, about my tweet.
It definitely does. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. It's more or less what I was thinking with the, but it's good that I'm not the only one, because fuck, had a lot of wacky Discord arguments about that recently.
Yeah, no, it's weird. Like, when it comes to this topic, I've noticed like a very weird ethos around these NGO organizations. Like, this is very, like, if they define something a certain way, like, that almost becomes like sacred in a way. Like, to some people, it's like, what definition of this buzzword are you using? Well, if you open up the scrolls to this NGO and this, like, they've used this term and this, they have codified it, where it's like okay, all right, buddy. Sure. Yeah, it's just like a very weird type of ethos they have around these types of, like, it's almost like they're holy in a way. It's very weird. So yeah, there's that.
I think my favorite, there was a moment I was watching a debate yesterday between Benny Morris and Norman Finkelstein. And I think Norman was just kind of screaming this whole, like, oh, what happened to that flour mill? Why did Israel hit the flour mill? What was happening to the flour? Do you think it was a Hamas flour mill? And I think Benny Morris was just saying, like I don't know, and you don't either. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about a lot of these. Yeah.
Like, okay, like, in order to even go about answering that question, like, we would have to go about answering the question. I don't think it's just because it's a flour mill, it means, like, there's no way a flour mill could be hit for a military objective. It's like, well, there are there are ways. I don't know if any of those ways are, maybe look, it could be that it was a fuck up. I have no idea. Maybe it was a fuck up, maybe it was not. I'd have to look into the situation. I have to look at the context. I'd have to look to see if there were any reports, or any whistleblowing, any documents, anything like what like, did any of that happen? No. Did Finkelstein deliver any of those things in the debate, or did he just say it was a flour mill? How could a flour mill get hit?
The most reliable evidence I can see is that it seems like a flour mill got hit, and we don't know. It doesn't seem to have had a military use. I was like, okay.
And when you say got hit, was it targeted, or was it like damaged as a result
I
of
think
some
it-
strike?
I think it looked like it was hit, like properly hit. But again,
Mhm.
there's like, we don't know why. Yeah, I think the more honest reports said we don't know why. We didn't look like there was military use, but yeah,
Mm.
it can be a like it's because people miss target with like blurry drone pictures.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah, no, I mean, look, one explanation. I don't know. Look, so yeah, I haven't looked into it. I don't know. One explanation is like, look, it's a war. Fuck ups happen. One explanation is just like things can be mistargeted. That's one thing. Or another explanation is faulty intelligence.
Yeah.
You could have believed that there were certain combatants in the area, and it turns out you were wrong. It could like, well, why would combatants use a flour mill? Why would combatants be in an area? Why would they be anywhere? Like what? Yeah. So I don't know. Is my answer. I'd have to. Okay. So it was hit. Flour mill was hit, but that's not where the investigation should end.
I will say, I feel like maybe they'll do this. I feel like
Yeah.
if the IDF secures a particular part of Gaza,
Mhm.
like it's like the hospital, and they've got all of northern Gaza, I really think they should just invite, if they can, just get as many journalists and international bodies in as possible, just to show them what they find. Because I
Yeah.
feel like they could literally film from the outside of the road, going into the hospital and going
Yep.
inside,
I
and
was
people
just
would still be
thinking that.
not too sure about what they're seeing. Yeah.
I was just thinking because I saw this Norm Finkelstein tweet. He just said like something along the lines of like, "Oh, Israel's about to get into the Al Shifa hospital. Don't be surprised if you find copies of Mein Kampf in the incubators or something." It's just like, okay, but he says that, but like, here's the thing. Like, I think that if Israel does discover like a Gaza headquarters in the Al Shifa hospital, and by the way, just to be clear, I'm agnostic about that. I don't know. I know what they're saying. I know they believe it's there. Whether it's actually there or not, I'm not 100% sure. I know my credence is leaning more so because I've heard it reported by CNN that the U.S. intelligence is also saying such. But
Yeah, I saw that too.
yeah, so my
Well,
credence is
could
leaning
just
more
be
and
their
more.
autistic special interest, but
Yeah,
that hospital.
yeah. But the thing is, like, I'm under the impression at this point that Israel could just straightforwardly, if it is there, Israel could probably just straightforwardly film everything from the outside of the hospital inside all the way going to the inside of the Hamas headquarters with Hamas terrorists there, and I still think it wouldn't be persuasive to them. I still think they would find something to say to just like deny it. It's IDF sources. Yeah, so I agree with you. Yeah, they probably should. Although I don't know what journalist would take up that job. Oh my god, like that. I guess some would. I mean, they do a lot of
Bro,
crazy things.
I'd take that. I would fucking IRL stream inside what's left of that
Yeah,
base.
you wouldn't be afraid of anything
Yeah, I'd
that
be
could happen.
afraid, but I'd have my little blue hat on, and
There you go.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So
my
I guess
Mr. Beast soy face. Yeah, I could do that.
there you go. Would you be able to carry? I'm not trying to be rude. Would you be able to carry the bulletproof vest weight and jog?
Yeah.
Okay,
Listen, I'm
good.
not as fucking big as you, but I'm doing my best out here, you know?
I'm just playing. I'm fucking with you.
You're
No, that's good.
Milbroing me.
There are no. So there are. I guess I shouldn't say that there are journalists that are willing to take those risks. That does sound like a pretty fucking crazy like risk. Going into the terror tunnels, like like that whole area is probably mined up like that. I
Yeah.
would be really fucking scared going in there. I mean that sounds. I mean, look, it sounds like a one hell of an experience, especially if you're live streaming that. Like then you're like a reporter live streaming that. Yeah, so I guess there probably would be a lot of reporters doing that, even despite how insane that is. Yeah, so they should do that. Because yeah, if it's just the IDF footage, like even if it's all true, like I think people will just straight up deny the footage at this point. They would just say like, "Oh no, this is the IDF filming. Like it's just not real," or something like that. We found an edit we found one edit in the video. It was edited. Like, aha, got it. It's all fake, or something like that.
Well, the IDF guy mistaking the Arabic on a calendar,
Yeah.
mistaking the day names for
Yeah,
names of people.
exactly. This Israeli speaking person, so this Israeli Hebrew speaking person didn't understand Arabic. Aha, the whole like everything. Yeah, it's just it's the composition issue where it's like, okay, if there's like a number of things they got wrong, then like the broad claim is therefore wrong. Like no, like that could be true, could be false. I don't know.
Well, we'll see. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry. Did you? I'm probably gonna jump off and do some.
Yeah.
Content.
At some point, I mean, at some point, I guess we can discuss about like a long-term solution about like in terms of boards, because I think the whole Gaza situation was a mess and probably a mistake. And if
Yeah.
I had my way, like obviously with like some sort of like agreed upon land swaps and whatnot, like my envisionment goal of a two-state solution would probably be to have the Palestinians have a contiguous territory and not be like separated by Israel in like one area or another. So like maybe some trade-off for some increased territory in the West Bank, and Israel gets the Gaza Strip back or something like that. And the Gazas get some additional area in the West Bank that they wouldn't have had otherwise.
Just get the entire world to build a second Gaza, like just south of the West Bank in the Negev, right?
Yeah, well, not a second Gaza. Well, I mean, look, hey, a second Gaza is going to be be built at this point either way. Okay.
Yeah.
At this point, if you're gonna have to rebuild fucking Gaza at this point, which it looks like that's what's gonna happen, at least rebuild it next to the other Palestinians. Like, don't rebuild it in the same fucking stupid location where they're like separated from their other Palestinians, and then they're pinned, and then like Israel has to like, and then Israel's gonna be like between them, and then like there's restriction of movement, and then they're not a contiguous people, and it's like, I mean, like that's basically would be the counter at that point. It's just like at this point, another Gaza is going to have to be rebuilt regardless.
Well, I mean, it's been very unpredictable so far. So, God, the next year or two of this is just going to be, yeah, I feel like it's just going to be the most unexpected shit's going to happen, but who knows?
Yeah, no, wild. But hey, look, it was good talking to you.
Yeah. Nice to talk to an actual fucking human being about this
Yeah.
stuff, but yeah.
No, it's likewise. That's my impression as well.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm sure I'll speak to you soon. All right.
All right. There was one. Yeah, I have to jump off quick as well. There was one person, or just there's one person that Isaac, wanted me to talk to. Who was that person, Isaac? I don't know who.
Oh
who you're
yeah,
referring to.
you should totally wreck this guy in chat. I called him low grade cannon fodder because he says you'll only engage low grade cannon fodder, but yeah, you should look at his amazing.
I don't know. I don't appreciate him insulting. You're echoing, Isaac.
All right,
Sorry.
I'll take it. I'm off. I guys take it. Bye-bye.
No, I was about to say I don't appreciate him insulting LonerBox like that. That was very mean. And I don't consider him to be low grade cannon fodder. So what the fuck? Oh, he left. He left the server. All right, whatever.
Oh, typical. Okay. Well, so much for that.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's good talking to you, Loner. Later.